Helping families get off the streets, the strategy to help put them on the path for housing. And the race to cash in on cannabis is on. The regulations in San Diego that could be creating conditions for a legal cartel. All tangoed in the tango. The San Diego production that makes audiences rethink what opera is all about. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Hundreds of volunteers canvassed San Diego County streets, canyons, and parks this morning to count homeless people. The count helped San Diego County secure federal funding for housing and other services. But it's not the only way officials are tracking this vulnerable population. KPBS reporter Susan Murphy has more.
Maricela Valdez and her 2-year-old daughter Leilani are homeless. At night, Valdez says she rides her bike around downtown, pulling her daughter behind in a baby bike trailer.
I make it comfortable for her so she sleeps in there at least, because I don't feel safe, just staying in one spot, you know.
It's people like Valdez that the Regional Task Force on the Homeless is wanting to know more about. They've created a shared database called a Coordinated Entry System to put a name to each face, find out what their situation is, and put them on a path for housing.
We really need to dig into this and understand it.
Chief Operating Officer Tamara Kohler calls it a game changer in the fight against homelessness.
When it is fully implemented, it will be at the front door of all of our programs and direct people accordingly to the programs that will end their homelessness as quickly and tailored to what their needs are.
More than 13,000 people have been entered into the database over the past year. Now it's being put to the test to fill the 700 beds in the city of San Diego's new 3 large homeless tents. But Kohler says one challenge is getting back in touch with people who have been assessed and let them know their bed is ready. Often their phone number changes and they don't have an address.
Many times by the time they're prioritized and we are ready to connect them to a housing resource and provider, we can't find them.
Rachel Johnson is homeless and says she recently completed an assessment. At 5 months pregnant, she says she was told she's near the top of the shelter waiting list.
And I guess, there's just so many people that they can't do nothing about it, I guess.
While waiting, she's spending her night sleeping on downtown sidewalks.
It's very uncomfortable, laying on the hard ground, not comfortable at all, but it's what you have to do to survive, I guess.
The Task Force on the Homeless says the database is currently shared among 6 homeless service organizations. They plan to expand the program this year, including more emphasis on outreach. Susan Murphy, KPBS News.
Public transportation may be the key to meeting California's demand for housing. A new bill in Sacramento would remove several housing restrictions near major transit areas. The measure is getting pushback from local officials who fear it would gentrify neighborhoods. Bus riders in San Diego can look forward to next Sunday when a number of routes will be running more frequently. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen has more.
The 235 Rapid Bus connecting Escondido with downtown San Diego is one of the most popular routes in the Metropolitan Transit System. Starting next week, it'll run every 15 minutes during midday hours instead of every half hour. Trang Lee is a student at National University. She rides the bus every day and says more frequency will save her a lot of time.
Sometimes the bus doesn't go on the right schedule, just 1 or 2 minutes. And I miss the bus, then that will be kind of long time to wait for 30 minutes. But if it will be 15 minutes, then that would be great.
MTS spokesman Rob Shoup says the changes to bus routes were based on ridership data and on surveys of passengers.
We went out, we asked people what they wanted. By far, they want more frequency. So they want buses, they want trolleys to come more often.
Dozens of other bus routes are being adjusted as part of a plan to improve connectivity, reliability, and efficiency. Another set of service changes will take effect this summer. MTS hopes the plan will help reverse years of declining ridership that's threatening state and local goals to combat climate change. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
Oceanside has a new mayor. The city council has appointed former city manager Peter Wise to finish the term of Mayor Jim Wood, who retired after suffering a stroke. KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John says Wise will be mayor for at least the next 2.5 years.
When he retired, Mayor Jim Wood recommended the City Council appoint either Peter Weiss or City Clerk Zach Beck as the mayor. Beck withdrew his name, saying the feedback he got from residents was that they wanted an election to choose a new mayor. But Weiss said he was willing to serve. He says emails to the city manager's office favored an appointment. Weiss received 3 out of 4 votes from the Oceanside City Council to be appointed, and that means he'll serve out the rest of Mayor Wood's term till 2020. And he's leaving his options open for a future election.
Well, had the election been in the next few months, the answer is no. I would not have run for the position. Sitting here today, when I told the council I was interested in the position, I had indicated to them that I was not interested in seeking re-election. But again, who knows what happens over the next 2.5 years. Today, I would say I have no ambition to run for re-election, but we'll see what happens in a few years.
Oceanside has been without a functioning mayor since last spring. Weiss will provide the 5th vote to break tie votes on the frequently divided city council and allow the city to move ahead. However, some residents are upset that they will not have a chance to vote on the new mayor till 2020. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
The San Diego Association of Governments needs more time to consider whether the county's only freshwater coastal lagoon will remain walled off from the ocean. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says the agency is taking an extra month to consider public input on the Buena Vista Lagoon restoration project.
The Buena Vista Lagoon between Oceanside and Carlsbad is slowly being choked by sediment and cattails. The tall grass there thrives because the ocean is kept at bay by a low wall built by homeowners.
You can't move forward without addressing the commons.
Gabriela Torres represents a group of homeowners that want Sandag to do what they say should have been done for decades: dredge the lagoon and clean out the cattails to cut back on thriving mosquito populations.
The mosquitoes wouldn't be as prevalent, the cattails would be cut back, and so now we're trying to fix decades and decades of a problem that we sort of let get out of hand.
The homeowners argue the 220-acre coastal lagoon and ecological reserve has a long history as a freshwater lake, but they say the Sandag Environmental Impact Report doesn't share that conclusion.
What the EIR hasn't addressed is what is its natural state. We've introduced evidence that says it has been historically freshwater, and the EIR says, well, there's times when it has been, times when it hasn't been, but I think that question is what needs to be answered specifically, because that is environmentally significant to know that before we can move on.
The project is in Sandag's hands because the State Department of Fish and Wildlife failed to come up with a solution.
You can see that we did buy land on the other side.
Steve Roderick works at the Audubon Society's Buena Vista Nature Center on the north edge of the lagoon. He backs opening the waterway to the ocean because he says that's how the rest of San Diego County's coastal lagoons work.
A lagoon may form to be fresh water naturally. It only would last a short time. Storms and the natural geological reality of these estuaries means that the ocean's going to break them open again, and they're going to become brackish within a reasonable amount of time.
Opening the lagoon to the ocean or keeping it closed are two options being considered by Sandag. The freshwater option could cost tens of millions of dollars with ongoing dredging expenses. The saltwater option costs more up front, but requires less ongoing maintenance. Sandag could also decide to create a hybrid lagoon with water east of the 5 staying fresh and water west of the freeway becoming brackish. Or they could do nothing. Roderick welcomes the return of a saltwater lagoon because it creates coastal habitat for migrating birds.
The major change to a brackish lagoon would be the elimination of all the cattails. That would be number one. And the elimination of the cattails will provide us also with way fewer mosquitoes.
Tidal flows will change the land around the lagoon. The wall that's been there for decades keeps water levels constant like a lake. The ocean pushes water levels up and down, and that could impact waterfront properties. Sandag was poised to pick one of the alternatives today, but postponed that decision for a month after a flood of public comments. A Sandag official told KPBS they want to make sure to incorporate those remarks before moving forward. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
It's warming up for the weekend. Santa Ana winds are kicking up. Jeff Cornish has more in tonight's forecast.
We are concerned about fire danger. Once again, a fire weather watch is in effect for the bulk of the weekend, Saturday evening through Saturday night, all of Sunday, Monday morning until Monday afternoon, especially for the mountains and the foothills of the Eastern Valley, so most areas east of San Diego under this fire weather watch. Northeast winds may gust up to 50 miles per hour, while humidity may be down around 10%. In some spots, like the Santa Ana Mountains and immediately south of a few passes, gusts may reach 60 miles per hour with humidity just as low. So that's a big concern. Satellite radar combo very quiet on a local scale once again. We had some action nearby earlier this week, especially just to the north. Now things are much more restricted once again to the true northwestern U.S. Some clouds up in northern California. Mainly clear for us, though, down to 46 tonight. And across the region, it'll be another borderline chilly night. They're not quite as cold or chilly as it was last night. So 34 in Oceanside. In Ramona will be around 38. Borrego Springs bottoms out around 41. Mount Laguna on track for 32 degrees. It will be a fairly nice Saturday. Morning fog off to the north. Not much of an issue for us. More of an issue for the Central Valley. But along with this nice, keep in mind that wind is going to pick up with the Santa Anans beginning to set up shop once again in the second half of the weekend. So we're on track for a bright time. Temperatures rebounding nicely to 72 in San Diego, 73 Oceanside, Borrego Springs 75, Mount Laguna 56. Late in the week, into the weekend, again, here we are this Friday, but as we look ahead to Saturday and Sunday, it's a drying trend, much warmer, near record warm on Monday with a high around 83 near the coast. A lot of sunshine out there. And again, we're concerned about the Santa Anas this weekend. Windy out there on Sunday. Very warm, upper 80s on Monday. Into the mountains we go, and temperatures rebound into the low 60s. Very windy at times as well through some of the passes and the desert locations. Low 80s for Sunday and Monday. I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News. Back to you, Ebony.
High school students protest after a violent incident with police. New questions about campaign donations to Bonnie DeManis and the red-hot condo market in Tijuana. Join us for the KPBS Roundtable tonight at 8:30. A coalition of cannabis growers have filed a lawsuit against the state. They want to stop commercial growers who may bundle licenses to grow. They say that could lead to bigger farms, which may drive smaller growers out of business. Class is in session for San Diegans who want to learn how to run a cannabis business. The State Bureau of Cannabis Control held workshops today on commercial marijuana licenses. State experts also covered public health, food, and ag regulations. San Diego now has 13 stores with licenses to sell recreational and medical marijuana, but it's nowhere near what some say is needed to meet the city's demand for marijuana. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen takes a look at some of the reasons why it's so hard to open a legal cannabis dispensary.
Okay, so we're in a former San Diego County Credit Union building, and that's why you see the teller desk.
Belinda Smith is showing me around the building she hopes to soon turn into San Diego's newest legal cannabis dispensary.
All the merchandise will be in this portion of the room, and this side of the room will be the waiting lobby. And then we'll have back offices on that side.
Right now, the space is pretty ugly. Fluorescent lights, drab carpet, and tile. But it's big, and Smith sees potential. She can't wait to get permits from the city so she can start renovating.
And we will be blowing out some of the soffits you see that kind of make those ceilings lower. We want a bigger space, more of an environment where a customer comes in and says, wow, I did not expect a cannabis store to look like this. So we have our work cut out for us.
Smith says she first filed her papers to open up a cannabis store more than a year ago. Since then, she's had a number of meetings with city staffers and multiple public hearings, all while paying more than double the market rent. She says getting a cannabis license is the most arduous process she's ever experienced.
The city is very thorough when it comes to vetting all of these cannabis businesses, and they should be, and we want to comply with all their rules and restrictions because we want to be fully in compliance and legal.
Still, a couple of delays have frustrated Smith. One in particular came from a nearby licensed cannabis dispensary, Tory Holistics. A store employee appealed a routine environmental decision, which forced Smith to present her project to the city council. Tory Holistics did not respond to multiple requests for comment, but Smith says she's certain the store owners are trying to slow her down to limit competition in the neighborhood.
Whenever you have a small number of players in a very lucrative market, those scenarios are more likely to arise.
Paul Seaborn is a professor of business management at the University of Denver who studies the cannabis industry. We spoke via Skype. He says these kinds of tactics, competitors using the law to quash their rivals, are used in all kinds of industries.
I think the difference in the marijuana world is the stakes are higher. There's an opportunity to be a real first mover in terms of location or brand or volume. And all these regulations that exist for very valid reasons provide more angles for these competitors to try to restrict competition.
Seaborn says it's hard to tell when cannabis regulations are so strict that they create the conditions for an oligopoly or legal cartel. But there are a few telltale signs. If all the stores look the same and offer the same buying experience, if they all charge the same prices, and, he says, in a functioning market, some businesses should fail.
If no one is entering and no one is leaving the market, a very stable set of competitors that suggests some level of kind of maybe overly structured setup.
Perhaps the biggest threat that an overregulated market poses is the loss of business to illegal operators. Before the passage of San Diego's marijuana ordinance, there were more than 100 dispensaries in the city. Now, the ones with licenses number about a dozen. Consumers may be less inclined to buy legal, taxed marijuana if getting it the old-fashioned way is cheaper and easier. Smith says beyond just stamping out the black market, she wants San Diegans to have more choices.
Competition is healthy. It's part of capitalism. It's how we work. It's how the consumer expects it to work. So more competition is actually better for the whole industry. It will separate the good players from the bad players and just in general allow the industry to be more acceptable and easier and as a result safer.
Smith is still working on getting her permit from the city. Barring any further delays, she'll get a final vote in March. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
This weekend brings a lot of music. KPBS Arts Calendar Editor Nina Guerin tells us what's happening.
One of rock music's brightest stars comes to San Diego this weekend, Annie Clark and her band St. Vincent. St. Vincent's latest album, Mass Seduction, embraces a pure glam aesthetic. It has dark songs about power, anxiety, and addiction packaged in a pop music wrapper. The music website Pitchfork called Annie Clark a female David Bowie because of her ability to change her sound and her style, while still being able to comment on society. This is a show you can't miss. Local band Pinback celebrates its 20th anniversary with 3 nights of shows at the Casbah. Pinback reached national and international success thanks to songs like Penelope and Good to See, both considered modern indie classics. The band played many of its early shows at the Casbah, a small but prestigious music venue in the Midway District. This will be your chance to recapture some of that late 1990s feel. Finally, the acclaimed piece, Inuxuit, will be performed for free, but you'll have to go on a 30-minute hike to hear it. Percussionists from both sides of the border will gather at Friendship Park to play John Luther Adams' piece. You need to hike 1.8 miles each way, mostly on level ground and soft sand. This is part of the San Diego Symphony's It's About Time festival. Oh, and here's a tip. If you don't want to hike, it's much easier to get to Friendship Park via the Mexican side. For KPBS Arts, I'm Nina Guerin.
San Diego Opera's second detour production, Maria Buenos Aires, is almost sold out for its 4-performance run. KPBS reporter Beth Accomando looks at why this tango opera is generating so much interest.
Tango sets the beat that drives Maria to Buenos Aires.
There was quite a bit of dance in this show, and tango is really sort of the spirit of the opera, and the music is infused with what we know of as tango music.
This is indeed an opera, complete with arias. But it's an opera that makes people rethink exactly what that definition means. And that's the whole point of the Detour series, says San Diego Opera General Director David Bennett.
We have a very adventurous audience that's starting to understand that the brand of this series is about discovery. So they don't exactly know what they're going to see, but they know they're going to enjoy it.
Part of the appeal of Maria de Buenos Aires is that it's done in the intimate space of the Lyceum's 500-seat theater. Director John de los Santos says that puts you right next to the action.
So the intimacy and the passion of the piece will really just kind of suck you in if you're this close to it.
One of the reasons we liked this venue is we could actually feature the orchestra and have it prominent instead of either in a pit or sort of behind the performers.
And having those musicians on stage was key.
Frankly, the work that they're doing is so interesting and full of great energy as well that we thought that it was another great scenic element.
The story follows a woman named Maria who travels through the slums and underbelly of Buenos Aires.
People can expect surreal poetry, they can expect a lot of dance, they can expect dancers, opera singers, and actors all thrown together in a really, really cool mix of Argentine energy.
It's based on poetry by Horacio Ferrer, who was a surrealist poet. The lyrics are based on that. So it creates a text world that is surreal, but very beautiful, full of metaphor.
I think that this is a piece where the plot, so much of the plot is taken from the symbols and the poetry, and so everyone's experience of what they'll take away from this and what it means to them might be different to each person.
But it all plays out to the rhythms of tango.
What's great about this is that there's different kinds of tango. There are some that express great longing, some that express desire, some that express sadness or fear. So the tangos in this piece are all, there's a lot of variety in the way they're presented.
And some are a vertical expression of a horizontal desire, as tango has famously been described.
Desire is definitely a theme in this, and so there is a sense of sensuality and sexuality in this.
Maria de Buenos Aires epitomizes the mission of San Diego Opera's Detour series, which is to showcase work that falls outside of traditional opera.
My hope is that people will come away thinking they've seen something new that they've never seen in the opera house before or in the theater before, because it's a really great conglomeration of all of these different wonderful, talented people and different elements. So if you're not into opera, maybe you'll love tango or dance or the poetry or vice versa. There's really something for everybody in this piece, and hopefully they'll walk away having an appreciation for all of the other elements of it.
I think they're going to take away that there is a great breadth of expression inside of the word opera that they don't know about, that I hope they're going to begin to see. That's what we're exploring in Detour, and they'll want to see more of it.
If the response to Maria de Buenos Aires is any indication, then the answer is a resounding yes. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
San Diego Opera's Maria de Buenos Aires runs through Sunday at the Lyceum Theater. A free series of puppet performances kicks off this weekend in San Diego's Mid-City neighborhood. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto says the shows aren't just for kids.
He does a little dance. He's like, that was my little dance for you. Give me a nickel.
That's Jason Johnson's cigar-smoking, dreadlocks-wearing marionette that he hand-carved after a long journey to Prague. He and his still-unnamed sidekick will tell you the tale this weekend as the first 2018 act of the City Heights Puppet Project.
You can come down. I'm down on one knee. Down on one knee for you.
Johnson's show is one of a series at the City Heights Performance Annex to entertain but also inspire the neighborhood's diverse residents. Annex manager Nigel Brooks says he hopes the inclusive art form will encourage the community to eventually use the public space for its own puppet shows.
As the place
is supported by institutional art practices. We want to be able to build relationships between the actual community and make them understand that this is a place where they can learn to be creative, to think in terms of becoming a cultural producer, that they can learn to do this as a possible career path for themselves, and that they can tell their own stories.
San Diego Puppet Guild's Mindy Donner helps organize the shows. A performer herself, she says the programming isn't limited to juvenile content, and some shows may come with an asterisk.
Not a kid's show, yet family friendly. And I believe that families understand that. It's not designed to be a kid's show. So if your kids are really little, maybe don't bring them.
Johnson's performance begins Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Finally, we leave you with the sounds of Gold Souls performing at Capitol Public Radio in Sacramento. Thanks for joining us. Have a great weekend.
Darling, I know you just got set free, and you could really see yourself with me. But honey, I think you should slow your roll. We just need a little self-control, 'cause there's so much drama and baggage and trauma and people who used us and people who abused us. And you know I feel that thirst, but I got